I was really, when we started this company 15 years ago, I was trying to come up with, a long-lasting name, legacy builders, something that was flashy and nothing really stuck or took. And behind me, I've got the apron that my parents gave me on my third birthday. It says Geoff's Contracting. So rather than fight it, I thought, well, I'm just going to go with it. And then I realized that it didn't really matter how much the name was. It mattered what you made that name. So you can have a clever name, but it's how you show up that develops the brand. So,
Yep.
in our small community, Geoff's Contracting means quality. It means caring about our customers. It means producing excellence. So that's not something that you would generally pick up from the name, but the brand is what's developed that. Right?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Builder's Bible. I'm joined today by Geoff Berry, who's actually up in Canada. So I'm actually really interested to hear about some of the challenges and how they're unique to another country. But Geoff is actually a friend of mine from Rise Up Kings. We were just chatting before we hopped on the pod. He's doing some residential home building as well. So Geoff, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I mean, my first question is always the same. Just tell us who you are and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, certainly. So humble beginnings. It's Geoff's Contracting. Not a really in-depth, profound name, but it does have a name that has some history to it. I was really, when we started this company 15 years ago, I was trying to come up with, a long-lasting name, legacy builders, something that was flashy and nothing really stuck or took. And behind me, I've got the apron that my parents gave me on my third birthday. It says Geoff's Contracting. So rather than fight it, I thought, well, I'm just going to go with it. And then I realized that it didn't really matter how much the name was. It mattered what you made that name. So you can have a clever name, but it's how you show up that develops the brand. So,
Yep.
In our small community, Geoff's Contracting means quality. It means caring about our customers. It means producing excellence. So that's not something that you would generally pick up from the name, but the brand is what's developed that. Right? So that's where we started. I'm obviously a carpenter myself. It started with just me. Now we're at, I don't know. We have seven in our management staff, 2 superintendents, estimator, renovation sales. I still do new construction sales and commercial sales, office manager, and a couple support staff in the office. And then we have about 7 or 8 payroll carpenter apprentices. Fleet of equipment, and we're in a pretty big building, 6,000 square feet. And, we've got enough capital to have sort of one of everything, one zoom boom, one rough crane man lift, excavator, that kind of level of company that doesn't start that way. And we're in Canada. It's colder up here, so we have to build accordingly. So those things are a little bit different than the southern states, of course. There's not saying there's not cold places in the U.S. as well, but we just adapt to our climate. So,
Yeah, what does that mean? Does that mean that you can't do your builds all year round? Or like I am naive when it comes to this stuff I'm learning. So help me understand that.
yeah, absolutely. So I literally was talking to a fellow who was a builder in Texas, and he was kind of making shots at me, whether he realized it or not, that, the build costs up in Canada was outrageous, and it is outrageous. But for example, there's no frost level in Texas, from my understanding. So the frost level is, and of course I'm in Celsius, of course, so 0 degrees Celsius, the freezing level in Fahrenheit. And we'll get down to minus, in a cold spot would be minus 30. So that would be like, the conversion would be minus 20 Fahrenheit, something like that. So the frost drives into the ground. So we have to get our foundations deep enough into the ground that the frost doesn't create heaving, right? Which will actually lift the building, if you can believe it. So we have to get our ground services, our water services, and our foundations below grade. In my region, which is about an hour north of the border, our frost level is 4 feet below grade, and our plumbing services have to be 6 feet. Northern BC, that frost level is 8 feet. So if this is the grade, the finished grade of where you would park your vehicle or walk on a sidewalk, we have to be 4 feet below it. In northern BC, that's 8 feet. So 8 feet of your foundation is buried. Well, that could be $100,000 difference between Texas and Fort St. John. So
Dang.
that's part of there's your build cost right there, right? And then factoring the elements too. Like you can't pour concrete if below zero. You're at risk of that concrete cracking and pitting and falling apart. And it may not tell you that until years later, but you have to make sure that you are assembling based on the climate. So, in our seasons when we get past October, we're using hot water in our concrete mixes. We use insulated concrete forms, which is a styrofoam block and pour the inside of filled with concrete. And that's like an R12 insulation value on the form alone on each side. And then we have to cover it with insulated tarps. And, I literally poured a foundation years ago with an ICF form, and it dropped down to minus 25 Celsius that night. Covered it with insulated tarps. I went back in the morning to check on it, and the heat from the chemical of the concrete bonding actually created condensation underneath the tarps. There was water pooling on top of the concrete the next morning, even at that extreme temperature. And then we have other stuff too, like I want to pour a concrete slab. We have a ground thaw unit, which is a glycol unit. It's not much unlike a garden hose where it's just filled with glycol, which glycol is a chemical that won't freeze. And we're circulating hot water through a portable boiler and running heat just to cure that slab so that it doesn't freeze. Otherwise, you're going to have a warranty claim, right? So there's just building in a colder climate has some more obstacles. But that's just general building science, right? And in every climate, I'm not so arrogant to believe that I could roll into another center and just set up shop and build anything. The code is different in every province. It's different in every state. And it's not like I wouldn't be able to understand it, but there would definitely be some adjustments regionally on how building assembly and building science can come into play.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you're able to do it. I mean, it sounds like you've got systems and processes to kind of work through the cold. The guys in Texas, though, should count their lucky stars. It sounds like that it's not.
I'm sure they got their own challenges there too, right? Whether it's humidity or extreme heat, those are all calculations in building science, and wind loading is a thing, and there's different regions. All those documents are in play in different regions, and qualified builders are building according to them, right? So you just have to take all those things into play in the building science for sure.
Yeah. Geoff, out of curiosity, what's your this helps the audience, what's your top line? What was your overall revenue last year? How many projects did you work on?
I'd be guessing 50 projects, but we're kind of in that 10 million top line revenue area.
Yeah. And what are some of the things, we hear from a lot of builders, it's estimation, it's project management, it's skilled labor. What are some of the things that keep you up at night? What are some of the issues in your business or sticking points you're trying to solve?
Yeah. I mean, I have them all. I have them all, but they all are generally circumstantial. I need an estimator. Yeah, that sometimes can be a hard position to fill. I need a site superintendent. I have a fantastic one. It would be heartbreaking to lose him, right? There's sticking points all the time. And where I'd like to go with this is just bigger picture. I'm reading a really good book by David Green. He's the founder of Hobby Lobby. Maybe you're familiar. I started reading this book. It's called Leadership Not by the Book. And if you have a chance to read it, I definitely suggest it. I could tell this guy's spirit-filled right from the beginning, and he's got gold nuggets throughout. I'm highlighting almost every page. And the biggest thing is get your face centered, right? Like I've made mistakes, and regardless, sometimes things don't go on the timeline that I want, right? We recently just hired an operations manager. We were searching for a long time. People have made suggestions, why don't you hire a recruitment agency, headhunter, whatever, right? And tried some of those things, didn't really work out. Prayed about it. I got one application. It's okay though, because that's the one guy I needed. He was the right guy. This happened to me twice. I was looking for a salesman. Prayed about it. Made the list. Obviously the guy got the interview, but I only needed one guy. So, as much as it might be absurd that, based on the short list, I don't hire people unless they're A players. They still have to check all those boxes or they're not coming on board. Like, our goal is to perform at a level of excellence, if not remarkable. And the biggest change that I've taken, even in the last year, is not sacrificing A players. There's a place for B players and laborers and stuff like that, but if you want a management team, they need to be A players. If they're not A players, you're certainly going to be sacrificed. So, we need to be in a place of dependence on God. That's exactly where we need to be, and that's where He wants us to be. So, to be overwhelmed with a certain circumstance, there's a fine line between goal setting and there's a fine line to being still and knowing He's in control, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't happen on my timeline, but if I'm patient and wait, and let Him be God, He will be God.
Yeah.
He will do all things that we need done. And
Amen.
Subsequently, like we have another, like my big picture, maybe I'm going down a rabbit trail on this or not, but yeah, we build houses. I've been doing this a long time, but it's all more about the bigger picture. We just happened to purchase, it's kind of a long story, but we just purchased 320 acres an hour north of here. And it's right on the edge of the Rocky Mountains. It's got the Lucia River running through it. The bull trout run in there, and they get up to 20 pounds in the fall that'll run that river. And it's a spectacular piece of property. And my heart there is to develop a place for people to have a retreat, for men's retreats, Christian retreats, family retreats, whatever, campground development, etc. So, by God's grace, there's all kinds of things that led up to this, but we did purchase the property. And then we did some selective logging, and we were supposed to get paid $200,000 from the logs. And I'm like, hey, perfect. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to, put this bridge over the Lucia River, put solar in this cabin, well, septic, all this development costs. Well, in the end, we got 41% of the take that we were supposed to. And I could get excited about it, could get mad about it, but I still had to walk in love on that. And at the same time, I was like, Lord, like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And He says, I'll provide. Do I have the answer yet? No. But it doesn't mean the vision's not going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
If I want to go down the rabbit trail, I have to say, like, we all know about Noah's Ark. You read that book of the Bible?
Yeah.
He got his word from 100 years ahead of the time when the flood came. So the ridicule that he was under for 100 years, it still was patient and waiting on the Lord. And the one thing I realized about it too is it's like we have an audience of one, because everyone that ridiculed Noah, none of them ever lived for Noah to say, I told you so.
Yeah.
So it mattered not. And if Noah was not faithful to the direction that God would give him, we would all be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. And even Noah lived his life, his family knew him, and there was not a lot of praise to him, but the honor and glory was to God. And posthumously, in God's grace, He wrote about Noah in the Bible, that we all know of his story. But it wasn't for his own pride to get filled up. It was about him doing what God was directing him to do. So, I'm saying I don't have all the answers. And sometimes it is scary. but having my faith in the right place is the starting point.
Yeah.
Right. And hard things are always there. I'm not pretending they're not, but it's how I deal with them. Sometimes I do it right. Sometimes I don't. But when I'm waiting on the Lord, that's generally when I'm doing it right.
That's a good word. And I talk to a lot of builders who, I mean, it sounds like, and I'm a financial advisor by trade, so they made it harder every year to do financial advisory work, like the regulation, the monotony, the hoops you have to jump through. And I would assume that your industry is very similar. Every year it's something new. But I love what you're saying. It's like, at the end of the day, I have a foundation that is stable. And all of this crap, like maintaining skilled labor laws, frozen foundations or whatever, is circumstantial. But if I really put my faith in Jesus and my trust in God, like, I can overcome any of those obstacles. And so I think mindset is huge, because I've talked to a lot of builders that want to be in your shoes doing $40 to $50 million a year in revenue, and a lot of them are stuck at, or I'm sorry, you said 10 rather. A lot of them are stuck at 1 or 2,
Yeah.
So that's a great word.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's from living it. Like I said, it's always hard. I'm not pretending it's not. If it was easy, you'd all do it, right? There's all kinds of constraints, and yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, like there's in British Columbia where I live, the code revision just came up with seismic loading. That's for earthquakes. Now, I haven't had any buildings fall down. There's not many earthquakes where I live. The earth is in, you think that seismic loading would apply to the foundation, being that that's in the earth.
Yeah.
But there's no seismic loading constraints on the foundation. It's only in the wall assemblies. So we can't build a house under Part 9 of the building code without a structural engineer anymore.
Yeah.
It's the exact same as what you're talking about. Like, the red tape just continues. But how do I get there? Another thing it says in that book that I was talking about, Dave Green said, is that, like, if you're familiar with Rise Up, it means it's faith, family, fitness, finance, in that order. And it's right. Because if you get the faith right, the rest of them will start to come into line. And David Green says that, if you're not family first, like, business is fourth on the list, right? So, being tuned into your family and being so busy that when I get to a certain level, I'm going to invest in my family. It may be too late. So, if there's any advice if anyone's out there listening, I would just say, live for now. Live now, not live for tomorrow. Now is real. And put the rocks in the jar. Whoever's phrased that, maybe I paraphrase that from somebody else, but put the important things in the jar first and let the other things fill in the cracks. So you decide. It says in the Bible, be the head, not the tail. And I choose to be that with our customers too. I don't work for everybody, right? I will be the head, not the tail, right? I'm going to provide a service for you, but if we don't match or meld properly, then I'm going to choose whether I want to work for that company or person or not.
Yeah.
And I'm going to choose to do my devotions and pray daily. I'm going to choose to check in with my wife daily and my children, and invest in them daily. I'm going to choose to invest in my fitness, as much as that's the hardest pillar for me. I have to force myself at times, and it's difficult to lose weight. I'm in good shape. I'm strong, but I don't look like some other people, but that's not my measuring stick. It's about my own personal discipline, right? So, God is all things to all men, right? And he's completely profound and in such depth. I mean, even the UFC guys are like, Jesus never tapped. Like, I'm not a fighter. I wouldn't want to mess with those guys, but they respect him, right?
Yeah.
In his own way. And yet he can be, gentle, kind, and loving, but strong as a warrior too, right? So he's the example.
Yeah. Switching gears a bit, let's talk about tech stack. What everybody's using different tools, and I'm curious to know if you're leveraging AI at all in any of the tools you're using, like Build or Trend or whatever tools you guys kind of use in your tech stack.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm weak on the AI side. It doesn't mean that our organization is. I personally am. So my wife's the office manager. She's actually more tech, and our operations manager. He's got a computer science degree. So those are the actual people within our organization. Um, but I don't actually use estimating software. The estimating software I've built, off of an Excel spreadsheet table, and it is, to some extent, people are familiar with it would understand. But I'm nerdy. Like, you'll put one entry in my Excel spreadsheet that will link to 15 different cells. So I've created my own software in an archaic version of building off a blank Excel spreadsheet with limited knowledge. Like, I went and did business administration and took a Excel spreadsheet course, and equals this functions and sum functions and auto calculate functions and link cells is pretty primitive, but it works for me. I don't have the trust entirely on complete AI software, et cetera, because again, regional pricing, you have to build in a
Yep.
certain way. I can build in Canada the same way as I can build in Texas.
Yep.
Those factors need to come into play, and I'm not going to go in blind faith. And I'm not going to make excuses if we come up short. Like, I hear our competition, and like, oh, I forgot to include the pump truck. I'm like, dude, it's 2025. If you can't figure out what this costs, then you shouldn't be playing the game, right?
Yep.
And there's components, like I said, if I rolled into Texas and set up shop there's be things that I'd be ignorant to because I don't know. I don't build there. So
Yep.
I'd have to learn and adapt. So if we
Yep.
take a generic software that's blanketed for the entire North America, I don't have the confidence it's going to have the detail required. Now, it
Yep.
could be incorrect. Maybe people are using it and they're like, yeah, Jeff, you're an idiot. They have that extent in place, but I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just telling you what I'm doing, right?
Yep.
Maybe it's a little bit micromanaging, but it's worked. Don't fix it if it's not broken.
Yep. Jeff, is there anything we haven't talked about today, man, that you'd like to share with the audience? Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, more. When I started business, I wanted to take over the world, and I'm closer to that than I ever have been, and I want nothing less. I want nothing to do with that. I absolutely could care less. My heart is God will give you the desires of your heart. The desires of my heart are to see expansion of the kingdom. And there was a time in my life where, all of us successful builders are probably an overachiever to some extent. And the silver lining, which might be alarming to you, is an overachiever is born out of someone that has been lacked validation or void of being loved. So in the psychological format, we are trying to be seen, to be validated, and feel important and valued in this world. And Jesus is where I get my validation from. John the Baptist said, I must become less and less so that Jesus will become more and more. And we can talk like that, but once you really figure it out, I don't need to be on Instagram. I don't need to be on any public accolades because my audience is him. My validation comes from him. When someone asked me last week, I literally met with a lady talking about this white ram property that we have and the ministry plans we have out there. She said, Jeff, what's your definition of success? And I just said obedience. My definition is obedience, that I'm doing what God wants me to do. I'm in alignment with the plan that he has for my life. And I'm putting Geoff Berry down less and less because the desires of my heart are more and more about what he wants and what his plans are. And when I align with that, I'm fulfilled.
Yeah.
It's not the sports cars, the good golf score, shooting the giant moose, as much as I'd like to do all those things. My validation comes from a greater place. And if you can get to that place, you're on the right track.
Love that. Well,
Yeah.
Jeff, if people want to learn more about who you are and what you do, where can they go?
JeffsContracting.ca is our website. There's an admin link there. I am on Instagram, although I am spottingly, so it's Geoff Berry. Instagram, you'll find me. It's a Canadian guy with a big buck in his hands. But
I love that.
yeah, or you can send me an email or admin@jeffscontracting.ca. You say you watch the podcast, and it'll get routed to my email, and we'll go back and forth from there.
I love that. Well, shout out to Rise Up Kings. You know, Jeff and I know each other through a business called Rise Up Kings, which is a business that's a lot more like a ministry. And I can sense that Jeff is a man on fire for the Lord. And, you know, this community of men has been an incredible network and extremely meaningful for me. It changed my life, as I'm sure it changed his. And so if you are a builder or contractor or construction guy, could be an incredible place to plug in and get recentered. So, all right, Jeff, thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrew.